For an incredible 500 years, the Roman Republic wasn't just a government, it was a massive political experiment. And somehow, it built one of the most powerful superpowers the world has ever seen. So let's dive in and figure out how on earth they pulled it off.
But here's the real mystery, isn't it? How did a system that was so stable, so powerful, and so influential last for 5 whole centuries, only to completely collapse into civil war and dictatorship? That's the story we're going to unpack right now. All right, so how do you even begin to build a political machine that's going to last half a millennium? Well, you got to start with the raw materials. Let's take a look at the basic ingredients of Roman society that made it all possible. You know, when you look at the core components of early Roman society, they're almost deceptively simple. Their language? Latin. Their religion was pretty much borrowed wholesale from the Greeks. But their economy? Their economy was a powerful 2-stroke engine, farming at home and military conquest abroad. And you have to remember that constant drive for expansion, it is absolutely key to understanding everything that comes next. Now, the Republic wasn't Rome's first go at government. It was actually born from a revolution against a king, an absolute monarch. And the Romans decided right then and there that they never wanted one person to hold all the power ever again. So they created something brand new, a republic, where power was meant to be shared. So they threw out the king and built something totally new from the ground up. But how did this new political machine actually work? Let's get into the nuts and bolts of the republic's brilliance and, kind of complicated design. To really get it, you have to understand that Roman society was basically split right down the middle. On one side, you had the patricians, the wealthy, aristocratic, land-owning elite. And on the other side, well, you had pretty much everyone else, the plebeians. This tension, this struggle between the powerful few and the massive majority is really the central conflict of the Republic's entire story. So to manage all this tension, the Romans created this really complex system of different roles. At the very top, you had 2 consuls. Think of them like co-presidents. The Senate was the domain of the patricians, a super powerful advisory body. But, and this is so important, the plebeians had their own champions, the tribunes, who had the incredible power to veto laws to protect the common people. And if there was a true crisis, they had a break glass in case of emergency option, a temporary dictator with absolute power. And this is where you see the real genius of the Roman system. It wasn't just one type of government. It was this amazing blend of 3. You had a monarchical element with that temporary dictator, an aristocratic one with the Senate, and a democratic one with elected officials like the tribunes. This mix created this incredible system of checks and balances that made the Republic remarkably stable for centuries. And believe it or not, this isn't just some dusty old history lesson. The idea of a Senate, of veto power, of checks and balances, these Roman concepts are baked right into the DNA of so many modern governments we see today, including in the United States. So, a well-designed machine is one thing on paper, but how does it actually perform under extreme pressure? Well, the Republic was about to face the ultimate test of its strength. And that test was going to come in the form of 3 titanic struggles for survival. These wars spanned more than a century, and Rome would face an enemy that matched its strength, its ambition, and its fury. These were the Punic Wars. The enemy was Carthage, a rival superpower based in North Africa, and their leader, Hannibal, was one of the greatest military minds in all of human history. I mean, this is the guy who brought war right to Rome's doorstep, crossing the Alps with elephants and threatening the city's very existence. But the Republic's system, this machine built for a crisis, it produced its own great leader, Scipio. He was the one who was brilliant enough to take the fight to Carthage and finally defeat Hannibal on his own turf. This victory was a game changer. Rome was now the undisputed master of the Mediterranean. But right as Rome was celebrating its greatest victory against an external enemy, deep, fatal cracks were starting to show from within. The system that had conquered the world was in fact beginning to conquer itself. So what went wrong? Well, there were 2 huge problems. First, that old conflict between the rich patricians and the common plebeians, it grew more intense, more violent. But the second thing, and this is critical, was that hugely popular generals started commanding armies that were more loyal to them, personally, than they were to the Senate or the people of Rome. Power was shifting away from the state and into the hands of these incredibly ambitious men. And just look at how fast everything completely fell apart. In 49 BCE, Julius Caesar grabs absolute power. Just 5 years later, he's assassinated. And that one act, which was supposed to save the Republic, instead plunges it into nearly 15 years of brutal, devastating civil wars that just tear the Roman world to pieces. Systems don't just break on their own. People break them. So who were the men whose ambition and actions finally pushed the Republic right over the edge? Let's meet the game changers. But first, we need to understand a crucial change called the Marian Reforms. This is the moment the entire Roman army gets transformed. Before this, soldiers were just citizens doing their duty for Rome. Afterwards, they were full-time professional soldiers whose pay, whose retirement, and whose loyalty belonged to one person, their general. This basically created private armies inside the state. And this change set off a perfect storm, a chain reaction. Marius reforms the army, creating this powerful new tool. Then, ambitious men like Pompey and Julius Caesar use these personal armies to fight each other for control of Rome itself. Caesar wins, declares himself dictator for life, and is assassinated for it. But the final victor, the one who rises from the chaos, is his heir, Octavian. And he ends the chaos by ending the Republic, becoming the very thing the Romans had overthrown centuries ago, an absolute ruler, the first Roman emperor. And just like that, after 500 years, the great experiment was over. And it leaves us with this huge, fascinating question. Was the Republic a victim of a few ambitious men, or was it just that the political blueprint designed to run a single city was never going to be capable of running a global empire?